Sarah had just finished a double shift at the hospital. Her scrubs still smelled faintly of antiseptic and her feet ached in a way that made her wonder if she would ever feel rested again. But Emma had wanted hot chocolate before they went home to their small apartment, and Sarah could never say no to that smile. The waitress brought their order. 1 hot chocolate for Emma and black coffee for Sarah because that was all they could really afford. Sarah did the math in her head as she always did. Rent was due in 3 days. The electric bill sat unopened on the kitchen counter. Emma needed new shoes because her toes were starting to press against the front of her sneakers. That was when the man walked in. He moved slowly as if each step required great effort. His coat was worn at the elbows and his hair was mostly gray, though he could not have been much older than 50. There was something about his eyes that made Sarah look twice. They held a deep loneliness that she recognized because she had seen it in her own mirror during the dark months after her husband died. The man sat at the counter and studied the menu for a long time. The waitress came over with her pad ready, but he just shook his head and asked for water. Sarah watched as he folded his hands on the counter and stared down at them. His shoulders were hunched forward as if he was trying to make himself smaller. Emma tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mama, why does that man look so sad?" Sarah pulled her daughter closer. "Sometimes people carry heavy things inside, sweetheart. Things we cannot see." The man pulled out his wallet and opened it. Even from across the diner, Sarah could see it was nearly empty. He counted some coins onto the counter and then closed the wallet again. His hand trembled slightly as he pushed the coins toward the edge. The waitress returned and the man pointed at something on the menu. Sarah could not hear what he said, but she saw the waitress glance at the coins and then at the man's face. The woman's expression softened and she nodded and walked away. Sarah made a decision then. She was not sure why. Maybe it was because Christmas Eve had always been a time when her own mother taught her to look for people who needed kindness. Maybe it was because she understood what it meant to count coins and hope they would be enough. Maybe it was simply because the man's sadness seemed so heavy she could feel it from across the room. She stood up and walked to the counter. "Excuse me," she said gently. The man looked up and she saw his eyes were red-rimmed as if he had been crying or trying not to cry. "I wonder if you would let me buy your dinner tonight," Sarah said. "It is Christmas Eve and no one should be alone on Christmas Eve." The man stared at her. "I cannot let you do that. Please," Sarah said. "It would mean a lot to me." Really it would. He looked like he might argue, but then something in his face crumbled just a little. "I have not had a real meal in 2 days, he said quietly. "I lost my job 3 months ago. Lost my apartment last week. I have been staying at the shelter but they were full tonight." Sarah felt her heart squeeze. "Then you will have dinner and you will have it as my guest." She called the waitress over and ordered him the roast turkey dinner with all the sides. It was the most expensive thing on the menu and it would mean she could not buy Emma the new coloring books she had been hoping to get, but that was all right. Some things mattered more than coloring books. The man's name was Henry. He told her this as tears rolled down his cheeks. He told her he had been an accountant for 30 years until the company downsized. He told her about his ex-wife who left long ago and his daughter who stopped returning his calls. He told her he had been thinking dark thoughts lately. Thoughts about whether anyone would even notice if he disappeared. "I would notice," Sarah said firmly. "And more people would notice than you think. We all matter, Henry. Every single one of us." Emma came over and climbed onto the stool next to Henry. She reached out and patted his hand with her small one. "You can share our Christmas," she said. "We do not have much, but Mama says love does not cost anything." Henry looked at this child with wonder in his eyes. "Your mama is very wise." They sat together while Henry ate his dinner. Sarah learned that he loved classical music and had once played the violin. She learned that his favorite color was blue like the ocean and that he had grown up in a small town in Pennsylvania where everyone knew everyone. She learned that he was not so different from anyone else who had been knocked down by life. When the meal was finished, Sarah paid the bill. It took almost everything she had left until payday, but her heart felt fuller than her wallet ever could. She wrote her phone number on a napkin and pressed it into Henry's hand. "You call me if you need anything," she said. "A meal, a conversation, anything at all. Promise me." Henry promised. Sarah and Emma went home that night and Sarah lay awake wondering if she had done enough. wondering if one dinner could really matter in the face of everything Henry was dealing with. She prayed a simple prayer that he would be safe and that he would find his way. 3 days passed, then a week. Sarah thought about Henry often, but her own life was demanding and full. The rent got paid, though just barely. Emma got her new shoes from the thrift store. Life continued the way it does. Then one afternoon there was a knock at the door. Sarah opened it to find Henry standing there. But this Henry looked different. He wore a clean shirt and his hair was neatly combed. His eyes were clear and bright. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "That night in the diner. You saved my life, Sarah. I mean that truly. I had decided that night would be my last night. But then you saw me. You really saw me, and that changed everything." Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "Henry the First, I'm so glad you are here. I found a job," he said. "Just part-time at first, but it is something. And I am staying in a room at the YMCA. It is not much, but it is warm and safe. I am putting things back together one piece at a time." They stood there smiling at each other, and Sarah felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe, or the reminder that small acts of kindness ripple outward in ways we cannot always see. But Henry was not finished. "I know you are struggling too," he said. "I could see it that night even though you tried to hide it. So I want to give you something." He handed her an envelope. "Do not open it until I leave," he said. "Please." After Henry left, Sarah sat on the couch with Emma beside her and opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check. Her eyes widened when she saw the amount. $5,000. There was a note too. It read, "This is from my father's life insurance policy. He died last year and this was all that was left. I had been saving it without knowing what for. Now I know. This is not charity. This is passing forward the kindness you showed me. Use it to catch your breath. Use it to give Emma something special. Use it knowing that you are valued and appreciated and that your kindness changed a life. Merry Christmas. Love, Henry." Sarah cried then. She cried for all the hard months and the worry and the fear. She cried for Henry and his struggles. She cried for the beauty of human connection and the way love shows up in unexpected places. That money gave Sarah breathing room. She paid ahead on her rent. She bought Emma winter clothes that actually fit. She fixed the car that had been making worrying sounds. And she put some away for emergencies because she had learned that emergencies always came. But more than the money was the reminder that kindness matters. That seeing people and treating them with dignity matters. That sometimes the smallest gesture can be the thing that tips the balance between despair and hope. Sarah and Henry became friends. Real friends. He came for dinner sometimes and Emma adored him. He taught her to play simple songs on a second-hand violin he bought from a pawn shop. He was there for Sarah's birthday with flowers from the grocery store. He became part of their small family. Years later, when Emma graduated from high school, Henry was in the audience cheering as loud as anyone. When Sarah finally felt ready to go back to school to become a nurse practitioner, Henry helped her study. And sometimes late at night Sarah would think back to that Christmas Eve in the diner. She would remember the lonely man at the counter and the choice she made to reach out. She would remember that she almost had not done it because she was tired and worried about money, and it would have been easier to just stay in her booth. But she had listened to that small voice inside that said, "This matters. He matters." And in listening she had gained more than she ever gave. That is the truth about kindness. It never diminishes the giver. It only multiplies and expands and comes back in ways we cannot predict. It reminds us that we are all connected. That we all need each other. That love is the only thing that ever really saves us. On Christmas Eve each year, Sarah and Emma and Henry go to that same diner. They sit at the counter and they buy dinner for whoever looks like they need it. Sometimes it is a struggling single mother. Sometimes it is an elderly person eating alone. Sometimes it is a teenager who has run away from home. And each time they do this, they remember. They remember that everyone has a story. That everyone is fighting battles we cannot see. That kindness costs so little but means so much. This is what Sarah teaches Emma. This is what Henry learned. This is what they pass forward. Love shows up in simple moments. In diners on Christmas Eve. In the choice to see another person's pain and do something about it. In the refusal to look away from suffering even when we have troubles of our own. This is how we save each other. This is how we make it through. Together with open hearts and hands extended. Always reaching out. Always believing that people matter. Always choosing love. And that makes all the difference.